we finally got to the moment we've all been waiting for. You've entered all of your categories that you find here in your expenses and income, both above and below the line, and you've added all your projections into place, and in this case we've got some actuals, and we're at the point to print your first budget. So when you go to print your budget, as we've talked about in another area in our tutorial how to do that, this is what's going to come out, and it's going to be in a 2-foot by 3-foot budget. Now, when you pick the size to print, you can pick 8.5 by 11, you can pick 8.5 by 14, you can pick 11 by 17, or 2-foot by 3-foot. And when you print, all of those different paper sizes are going to be put together to make a 2-foot by 3-foot, or possibly longer if you had more categories. But if you printed to 8.5 by 11, you would have approximately 8 of the 8.5 by 11 sheets that you would put together. And I recommend taping on the front and the back, and you'll come out with a beautiful budget that looks like this. The larger the paper size, of course, in 2-foot by 3-foot, you won't have to do any taping. And you can also put this on a thumb drive and take to a Kinko's, and you can have it printed there for a fee if you don't have a 2-foot by 3-foot printer. But you can print just fine using an 8.5 by 11 and taping it together. I did it for years, and all the budgets, it takes a little bit of time, but it gives you a budget that you can read. And as you get older, sometimes it's hard to see the cells. You need this size. There's a lot of data, and even if you're younger, you can lay this out, mark it up, and you can compare what you're doing a lot easier in a 2-foot by 3-foot size. So the first thing we're going to look at, just as an overview, you see the name that you put in earlier that shows up here. So it gives you what it is. It's the cash flow projections, and it is your, in this case, Red Door Rentals. And this section here, it gives the beginning budget report date. That's the date, of course, that you decided to start your budget from. It gives the revision date, which is the last date that you made changes. And this is the percentage of profit and loss, the percentage of this particular worksheet that you owned. If you'd had a partner, there's a 50-50 owner, that would have been 50%. Then here's, we've already covered, here is the income above the line sections that go here. You entered these by hand. You just typed them in. None of these numbers here do you put in. These are all automatic that are posted, as we've covered earlier. You'd simply plug in these where you put your projected numbers in, and then the cells here where your actuals were placed in as you got them. This is the section that covers other deposits below the line, and that is covered in your budget. You've already gone through the tutorial where you put in your row category and then did the same that we talked about with projection and actuals here. And your subtotal titles that will be covered next in the tutorial explaining those all show up here. The next section, as you can see, is your budget expense above the line. These are all those categories that you chose and entered in, or you could have used one of the templates we had to start with. And again, all of this section is automatically figured. You don't enter that, and here's where you put it all your projected in as it jumps each time. And then there's where the actuals are put in when you get them. One thing I want to mention, when you enter these categories here that are the names of the income and expenses both above and below the line, they automatically post here, and automatically when you plug it in here, it puts the name also over here. We did this so that you're able, if you're way over here, to be able to see what the row column heading is, the row heading is, because it's too far to look across all the way from here. So that's automatically posted, these numbers. Again, you don't have to add those either. And then you get down on these specific headings down here that give a lot of comparisons, and this goes the actual cash on hand at the end of the month, and that comes across and shows you each month what your actual cash on hand should be based on the actual and projected. And then you have the monthly cash on hand increase or decrease that we cover in the next section, exactly what that represents. The next one is the year-to-date cumulative increase or decrease in cash, again covered in the next segment, what exactly that does, and the projected yearly profit and loss above the line. And that is only this number right here, and which will be covered again in the next section, only represents the numbers above the line that were plugged in here, and the numbers below the line. This is, again, above the line, so this is in the blue and white. They're above the line income and the above-the-line expenses, because those are your normal budget expenses and income and do not take into consideration these one-time or special things that might be from the sale of something or a loan that you took, and in these cases here, past debts you're paying off or expenses that came from a one-time expense. And the following line, there's two actually left, the monthly profit and loss above the line that you see here, and that one shows by the month if you're making a profit each month, what your actual projected was or loss. And if you go negative, you can see over here that in this case, there was no profit that month. That was actually a negative in the projected and the actual. The last column here is the updated projected yearly profit and loss. And again, this number simply is, this was what you expected. It's changing as you go on, so you can see if you're doing better or worse on what you've actually done compared to what you first projected. Thank you, and get ready for the next segment. We'll go into more detail on these particular sections. Thank you again.